in mind. So this Shabbos is Shabbos HaGadol. It's a big Shabbos, literally. And that's what that means, Shabbat HaGadol. There are different explanations, different reasons for why we call the Shabbos Shabbat HaGadol. One big reason is something that's going to happen in around an hour and 44 minutes. Rabbi Wahlberg is going to give his Shabbat HaGadol speech between 8 to 8:45. So everyone is invited to join that on the same channel. And it's Gadol because it's one of the bigger speeches of the year. So the rabbi gives the Gadol speech, the big speech, right before Shabbat HaGadol, traditionally on Shabbat HaGadol itself. And therefore, it's called the Big Shabbat. Another reason that we call it Shabbat HaGadol is because a big miracle happened in Egypt where the Jews tied up on this day, on the 14th, they tied up on the Shabbos, they tied the animal that was the deity of the Egyptians, and they were able to eventually bring it as their sacrifice, and they didn't get tampered with, and they weren't harassed for doing that, even though it was the Egyptians' deity. So that was a miracle. But the real reason why it's called Shabbat HaGadol is because of the verse in the Haftarah that we read. It says God's going to send Eliyahu HaNavi right before the big day. So that's why it's called the Big Shabbat. The Haftarah talks about the big day. What's the big day? The day of redemption. And we're talking about Eliyahu HaNavi coming at that time. So the question is, what's the connection between Eliyahu HaNavi and the big day? Eliyahu HaNavi, if you pay attention, comes, this is like my observation, but I think it's pretty accurate. We mentioned Eliyahu HaNavi, and Eliyahu comes to visit us at transitional periods. Think about it. When does Eliyahu HaNavi come? I would ask you, but it's a little hard to go back and forth. So I'll just tell you. At a Brit Milah, we have the seat of Eliyahu. That's a transitional period. The baby's about to enter into the covenant. Eliyahu HaNavi comes. Eliyahu HaNavi also comes at Motzei Shabbos. Eliyahu HaNavi. We're transitioning from Shabbos to the new week. Eliyahu HaNavi is there. Eliyahu HaNavi comes at our Seder as we're transitioning from the Seder and from our redemption, from our enslavement to redemption. Comes at transitional periods, and he's going to come at the biggest transitional period ever, which is the end of days. Right before Mashiach, he's going to come and tell us good tidings right before Mashiach arrives. So Eliyahu HaNavi comes at transitional periods. And perhaps the reason is that Eliyahu HaNavi is a positive figure in our tradition. He comes to tell us that things are going to be okay. He's like a nice old grandpa who's there to tell the next generation it's going to be okay. And we need that in the transitional periods. And perhaps that's why we mention Eliyahu HaNavi right before the Shabbat, right before Passover. We mentioned him in our Haftarah because we're about to be transitioning into the Seder the upcoming week. And the Seder has a lot of promises. According to Jewish mysticism, if you do the Seder right, you personally can achieve a certain level of redemption. You can find yourself on a higher level than you were internally and spiritually than you were beforehand. It's a transitional period too. And Eliyahu HaNavi is coming to tell you on this Shabbat, you can do it. It's going to be okay. You're going to be able to make that transition and get to a higher level. I think it's especially relevant for us in these days. If you watched any bit of news throughout the day, your spirits can be lowered. You can feel kind of low energy at certain points of the day, especially just talking to different people and hearing everything that's going on. It's important to remember that things are going to be okay. Am Yisrael's been through a lot. Our nation has been through Mitzrayim, through Egypt, and we got out of it. We're also going to come out of this too. And Eliyahu HaNavi comes to tell us that. And maybe it's proper that we think about that this Shabbat, as we read the Haftarah, perhaps from our homes, that things are going to be okay. And just like in Mitzrayim, Hashem helped us, so too, in the end of days, Eliyahu HaNavi will come, and in our days too, Bezrat Hashem. May we see good times ahead of us and maybe experience that inner redemption that we're looking for in Pesach.